When the rain taps on your window and the night grows darker than usual, ancient secrets begin to whisper through the wind. You're about to hear one of those stories that were never meant to be told. But since you're already here, stay till the end. Subscribe if you dare, and turn on notifications. The next story might just be about you.
The chatter of voices, laughter, children's screams, and snatches of melodies from a dozen crackling speakers blended into a soft, sparkling cacophony that drifted through the warm air. The sun had slipped behind the treetops and now peeked through the lattice of branches. The heat was fading, and the cool shade slowly stretched out its tendrils. Bright t-shirts, flip-flops, tanned calves. People crowded around rides and ticket booths, gathered at the ice cream stand and scattered just as quickly. A lonely corn and popcorn stand glistened and melted in the heat, until it too was swallowed by the rescuing gloom. Ryan sat on the bottom step of a green trailer with a glass bulletin board and a modest sign that read "Security, watching the park." Sometimes he would follow someone in the crowd with his eyes, tracking them from the rusted old Ferris wheel to the dizzying Cyclone or the noisy bumper cars before letting them go, worn out, to a bench or down a side alley.
"And the wheel just tore his leg clean off, can you imagine?"
said Lexi nearby, recounting a horror story Ryan already knew and barely listened to. He was absent-mindedly crumpling an old ride ticket in his hand, a faded scrap with colorful stamps. His gaze drifted across heads and elbows, flew up with the garish carts and gondolas, settled on the hot asphalt, slid along painted curbs, bumped into his own knees poking out from his shorts, examined the shapes of scabs like mysterious islands on an old map with monsters, and then ran again to the cries and laughter coming from the rides. The ambulance took him, but he died in the ICU anyway. A kid zipped past on a hoverboard, and Ryan followed his sharp turns with mild envy. Then he glanced at a girl standing a little apart from the crowd. Blue dress, golden braids, nothing particularly special. Another wave of shrieks from the rides made him start to turn his head toward the noise. But then the girl looked back. Ryan froze. The hairs on his neck stood up and a chill crept down his spine. What a face she had! Round, with saggy cheeks like a wrinkled dumpling, old womanish. A stretched-out smile and slits for eyes. And just like that, the strange creature turned back and disappeared into the babble of polo shirts, tank tops, sneakers, sun hats, and oversized retro sunglasses. "What did you see, Rye?" He didn't answer right away. "A face flashed by, like she got stung by bees or something." "Who?" Lexi didn't get it. Ryan kept scanning the crowd for the blue dress, ignoring the question. Parents were already taking their kids home. Strollers rattled deeper into the dark alleys toward the park exit. "You two hanging around here all day again?" Officer Don, in a dark gray security uniform, walked up to the trailer. The question was routine, but still made them feel awkward. The teens mumbled a weak reply. The man smirked, not really listening. "Bet you're not doing your homework." "Well, actually," Lexi started, but Don was already stomping up the steps. Ryan barely got out of the way, stuffing his old ticket into his pocket. The door clicked shut behind him. Voices rumbled inside. Ryan felt relieved, but Lexi looked annoyed. Don was her stepdad. Lexi said something, but Ryan didn't hear. He stood with his mouth slightly open, staring off into the distance, either mesmerized by the flow of people or looking for someone. "Hey, Ryan, are you stupid or what? Say something." The crimson twilight thickened, curling like blood in the sky. Beyond the trees, the sunset faded, and from the east came a dark, leaden gloom. Shadows laughed harshly and skittered down the alleys. Any shape might reek of smoke and booze.
How does your mom even let you hang out with me?
Lexi asked, not for the first time.
"She just does," Ryan replied. Truth was, he didn't know. Last year, his mom had been stricter, checking his school planner every day and calling him home before dark. Maybe she was just glad he finally had friends. Ryan remembered her tired, indifferent face after a shift and frowned, his stomach filled with a mix of pity and guilt. Of course, she didn't know about the park. She didn't even know Lexi was a girl. Ryan suspected that if she found out, overnight visits would be completely off the table. She loved him, sure, but she had admitted more than once, when she thought he wasn't listening, that she regretted having him so young. Lexi was in 8th grade, taller and somehow older than 6th grader Ryan. He'd seen her a few times at school. It seemed like her classmates didn't like her much. Ryan wasn't sure, too afraid to ask. Early that summer, Lexi had noticed him wandering around the park alone, inspecting everything, and one day just walked up and asked, "You homeless or what?" That's how they became friends. "Her leg was hanging right there." Lexi pointed up at the rails curving overhead. "People were crowding around, kids staring, and it just dangled. They took the mechanic away hours before, but the leg stayed. They forgot about it or something, only took it down after 2 hours." "You talk like you saw it yourself." A little farther off, colorful lights spun, wheels turned, strength testers rang, and swings hammered the air like glowing mallets. But where Lexi and Ryan stood, it was a little quieter, a little darker. The sign for a ride that had been closed since last year loomed like the facade of a haunted castle. Huge block letters, yellow with a red outline, barely legible. "Inferno Express." "No, I was home. Saw it on the news. The comments were full of crazy stuff. She froze, then jabbed a finger at Ryan and moved on. "Do you have your phone?" "No." Ryan never mentioned it, but he left his phone at home on purpose. He didn't want to get a call from his mom. Also, he was embarrassed by how old and cheap his phone looked. "Mine's charging again. Ugh, I need a new battery. Just remind me to show you something when I get it back." "What is it?" "Just remind me." Lexi was already walking ahead, blending into the summer twilight, flickering green and red. "I barely came here that summer. Dawn started bringing me this year. Mom's not thrilled, but what can she say? I think I didn't come here even once that whole summer. What about you?" Ryan glanced back at the Inferno Express and mumbled, "Me neither." Today, it felt like someone was watching him from everywhere. Finally, the rides stopped. Their lights went out, and the night quietly pulled visitors away. Turns out,
The stars had been watching the park all along, small and attentive above. Ryan and Lexi were back on the steps of the security trailer. Warm yellow light leaked from the cracked door. The TV chatted to itself in different voices. A kettle hummed. Don clattered dishes while his partner did the rounds. Here, Lexi had gone to grab her phone and was now scrolling. I think this is it. What is? Ryan leaned closer, trying to read the screen, but couldn't. Lexi moved her lips silently, her eyes scanning, finger scrolling. Ryan suddenly felt uneasy and looked out at the park. Here and there, lamp posts stuck out, but their light didn't reach this spot. It felt like a tiny scrap of civilization, tossed and abandoned in the middle of an endless forest. Why was it so quiet? The kettle had been whistling, the TV talking. His footsteps are unmistakable. That iron peg hits the pavement with a loud thunk. If you hear it, run. Ryan stared at Lexi. Strangely, she'd managed to scare him. All right, kids, move aside. Don stepped out with a cigarette dangling from his mouth. He walked a few steps, lit up, and scanned for his partner. What the hell? What was that? Ryan asked quietly. A creepypasta. About this park and that mechanic. Someone made it up. Pretty good, right? Lexi moved closer, holding out her phone. Her knee touched his. It felt warm, oddly comforting, and awkward. Don turned to them. Always glued to your screens. You don't see anything else. The teens looked up, but he'd already lost interest. Leo, he called. Why are you walking like you got no legs? His partner approached, smirked, and said something, but the words were lost in the distance. All good? Don asked again. Yeah, Leo replied. Feels like it'll be a quiet night. The trailer became a dim nightlight in the middle of a vast, sleeping children's room. The murmur of voices became nearly indistinguishable. Two men drinking tea, talking over each other and over the TV without lowering its volume. The door opened slightly, letting out a sliver of light and two small shadows that instantly blended into the night. The kids walked for about 10 yards, glancing over their shoulders, then relaxed. Technically, they weren't supposed to wander far from adults at this hour, but in practice, no one looked for them or got seriously angry. They slipped past the high rides, not so high actually, and the pools of light cast by twin-headed lamps, then ducked behind the tavern building and followed a path along the fence. The paved road turned into a broad trail disappearing into the darkness. On the left, behind chain-link mesh, loomed the spider web of a ropes course strung between towering tree trunks. Any moment now, something massive and insect-like might scuttle across. Lexi walked slightly behind, complaining about her mom again, while Ryan scanned the forest. He'd wanted to ask something for a while, but never had the courage. It was something they both seemed to avoid. Ryan touched the crumpled ticket in his pocket and finally forced the question out. Hey, your dad? What? Is he alive? Lexi didn't answer right away. She kept walking in silence. The forest gloom hid her expression. "I don't know," she finally said. "I mean, he's probably dead." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I was little. I just don't know." "Aren't you angry?" "At you? No, dummy. At him. For not being there. I'd be angry." Lexi just gave a dry little laugh and said nothing. The woods thinned slightly. Past the rope's course, they came to a steep ridge. Gravel crunched beneath their sneakers as they climbed. At the top lay a miniature railway. A toy train ran here during the day. They looked at each other, then began walking along the tracks. Trees towered over them, looming like sentries ready to block their path. A silhouette of the next station appeared. Thick pillars, low benches. Animal figures adorned the facade. After all, this station led to the zoo. Ryan couldn't even remember the last time he'd gone. He didn't like zoos. They made him sad. But now the thought of sleeping bears and zebras somewhere up ahead felt oddly comforting. There were no lights here, just iron and stone in the middle of an ancient forest. Hard to believe that if you turned left and walked 10 minutes, you'd hit a multi-lane intersection with bus stops and a big shopping mall. A silvery boom gate emerged from the shadows, pointing skyward. Ryan tripped on a sleeper and watched his step more carefully. His thoughts drifted back to the Inferno Express, sitting idle all year like it might start killing again if someone flipped the switch. Truth was, everyone had already forgotten the accident last summer. Everyone except the person who wrote that creepypasta. And Lexi. Ryan looked at her face, trying to read it, ready to ask something when... Voices. They froze. Ryan turned, listening. His stomach clenched with dread. The sounds grew louder, closer. Not just voices, shouting, animalistic, angry, then laughter and swearing. Hearing that in the daytime would be unpleasant, maybe scary if you were alone. But here, at night, it was terrifying. The voices defiled the silence of the forest, shattered something magical that you didn't want to admit was real, but could feel if you didn't say it out loud. Please, just pass by. But they kept getting closer, growling, stumbling, laughing. Footsteps. How many of them? 3, 5, 10? Lexi grabbed Ryan's shirt and yanked him toward the station. They scrambled onto the platform and hid behind a column. Waiting was hard. The footsteps neared, but the voices had softened. Ryan was sweating, his heart hammering like a bell, sinking into an icy pit in his gut, then returning to the present, frozen against the wall of a tiny railway station, only to plunge again. At last, pale figures appeared, murmuring to each other. Laughing, they loitered by the tracks and moved on. Ryan exhaled, his shoulders dropped, but the tension didn't. "Let's go," Lexi whispered after a while. "Where?" Good question. No point in going forward. The zoo was closed. Left led back to town, right back to the rides, to the lights, to Don. But the drunk thugs had gone that way. No choice. Lexi and Ryan climbed off the platform, circled the raised gate, and took the trail back toward the park. Every now and then, They clutched each other's hands, pausing to listen. The strangers' voices had gone quiet. Maybe they were far ahead. Ryan bumped into Lexi and didn't understand why she'd stopped. Someone stood ahead, just a few yards away. A stocky, hunched man, back turned to them. He was breathing heavily, stomping to stay upright. A white tank top clung to broad shoulders, shorts and sandals. What was he looking for in the trees? Lexi backed up. Ryan followed. No other trail, but they could cut through the woods if needed. "Well, well, what do we have here?" A voice sneered, a raspy, mocking tone that sounded like it came from a chest full of gravel. They turned. A stranger had crept up behind them. Two more shadows loomed nearby. The bald guy in front turned around. A trap. For a few seconds, Ryan couldn't process what was happening. His blood pounded in his ears. Bright shirts, strong arms, buzz cuts. Guys in their late 20s or early 30s, half-empty beer cans, phone flashlights. They laughed and talked. Their attention focused on Lexi. Why? Ryan knew why. He just didn't want to think about it. His legs went weak. "You can go," the raspy voice said. Ryan didn't realize it was meant for him. Someone jabbed him in the chest, checked his pockets. "Go home. Your little friend's staying." The ground heaved under him. Ryan stepped back. Then a huge hand clamped down on his shoulder, reeking of cheap liquor and sweat. "Where do you think you're going?" the bald man muttered. "Nowhere." Ryan saw the tattooed fingers before they wrapped around his neck. Lexi screamed somewhere behind. Struggling bodies. Someone shoved Ryan. He fell. Something scratched his shoulder. Pulled hard. "What's happening?" "Go!" Lexi hissed next to him. She was dragging him by the seams of his shirt past the cursing men. They sprinted into the trees. Needles crunched under their sneakers. Angry shouting followed. They were being chased. But somehow the fear lifted. Ryan loved running. Even tripping or slamming into something in the dark couldn't ruin the exhilaration, the wild, delirious joy that replaced pure horror. They were close behind, not yelling anymore, saving their breath. But Ryan's legs didn't betray him. He could run. He saw Lexi's shirt ahead, had to keep up. Something stood among the trees. Ryan glimpsed it as he ran. He nearly jumped aside. A small, human-like figure, black and still. A round head, a delicate shape. The image flashed like a photo. Then it vanished. Did Lexi see it? They burst out onto a road and kept running. Ryan's heart hammered wildly. His breath came in ragged gasps, but the park gates were near. Then it hit him. A sharp pain under his ribs. He couldn't breathe. He stumbled, tried to call Lexi. Just a croak came out. On instinct, he jumped off the path into a grassy ditch, collapsed face first, and tried to stay still, but his lungs convulsed. Something heavy landed beside him.
"You okay?"
Lexi whispered. She was lying beside him.
"We could have made it."
Ryan couldn't answer. He focused on calming his breath. Footsteps thundered past above them. 1, 2 waves, then more. Their pursuers were stretched out, falling behind. Ryan and Lexi lay still, counting. 2, 3, a fourth, heavier one. They lay for a long time, afraid to look up. What if they did, and the men were just standing there, grinning? The ground was cold and damp. Ryan felt a gaze burning his back. The rustles were deafening. He raised his head slowly. A star winked mockingly above. That's who had been watching them. Cautiously, they crawled back to the path and moved on, staying low. "Did you see anyone?" Ryan nodded back. "What do you mean?" "When we were running through the woods." "You mean those guys?" "Not them." Ryan sighed, brushing dirt off his knees. "Never mind." The dirt trail turned into pavement. Ahead, a faint halo shimmered from unseen streetlights. On the left loomed the dark hulk of the Ferris wheel, its gondolas hanging motionless, dimly glowing. They didn't expect another ambush. Rough voices echoed freely through the night, familiar and unhidden. Just a few more steps. Lexi and Ryan crept toward a blue booth labeled Tickets and cautiously peeked around it. About 50 feet away, near the curve of the high rides, under a street lamp, stood the whole group of thugs, even more than before. Faces weren't clear, but there were 6 now. Lexi grabbed Ryan's wrist and squeezed hard. "That's Don!" 2 security guards against 4 thugs. Only now did Ryan realize it was a bad matchup. They stuck to the shadows, creeping closer to the ring of light. The adults were arguing, Don's voice low but firm, the intruders slurring defiantly. Lexi suddenly jerked back and cursed under her breath. Ryan stared at her, waiting. When she didn't explain, he followed her gaze. People were still arguing in the light, about to start a fight. But wait, there were 6 of them. Slightly off to the side, near the edge of darkness, stood someone else. Someone wrong. A thin man in a baggy white t-shirt and jeans. Small, with a pale, saggy old face twisted into a grotesque grin. Oily strands of hair clung to his scalp. Ryan almost screamed. It was the same face, the girl in the blue dress from earlier. No one else noticed him. The bald tank bellowed and charged one of the security guards. The man backed up, gripping his belt. Ryan recognized Don. In his hands appeared a rubber bullet pistol, the kind Lexi once used to shoot cups for fun. The bald thug only got angrier, marching right into the barrel's aim. "Come on, do it!" he screamed, spitting. His face reddened, trembling with rage. "Stop, you idiot!" Don yelled. His partner Leo swung his baton, but one of the punks tackled him from the side. The others swarmed. Ryan saw a bloody hand hit the pavement, fingers bent at sick angles. Gunshots cracked. Someone grunted, someone cried out. Don aimed his weapon wildly, the attackers dodging and backing off. But the man in the white t-shirt didn't move. His smile widened, lips thinning to white. Don turned the gun on the stranger, his expression twisting in confusion, then disgust. Was that the sound of grinding teeth? Or the skin of the creature's face stretching? Its head began to vibrate, like it was about to explode. Then it let out a deep, gurgling grunt and launched forward, a blur of motion. Don shrieked, fell, and started screaming in earnest. The thing landed on his chest, face buried in his ribcage. What it was doing couldn't be seen clearly, but the wet chomping and slurping left no doubt. Its back arched and hunched, vertebrae outlined beneath the white fabric. Don flailed, kicking and banging his head against the asphalt. Ryan found himself crawling backward, legs ready to run, to flee into the night. He might have done just that if Lexi hadn't run toward her stepfather. Panic gave way to desperation. Ryan cursed and followed. He feared a spray of blood from Don's chest, but instead saw light. When Lexi kicked the thing away, colorless beams of light streamed from its toothless mouth. It rolled off and vanished into the shadows. Don was silent, gasping like a fish. Ryan looked around. The thing was gone. Leo lay nearby in a brown puddle, utterly still. In the darkness, fading footsteps echoed. The thugs were running away, all but one. He stood nearby, filming on his phone, cursing under his breath. What the hell is this? What the actual hell is going on? Off to the side, something moved in the dark. Ryan turned. The thug noticed too, and fell silent, glancing behind. Something was approaching, tall, slow. The shadow thickened, resolving into a long, narrow figure. A small spherical head bobbed atop a thin neck, rising over 8 feet off the ground. Jesus Christ, Ryan whispered. From the gloom emerged the same hideous, doughy, wrinkled face with its ear-to-ear smile. The giant closed in on the thug, who stared, frozen, phone still recording. The creature's massive hand lowered onto the man's head, jointed fingers wrapping around his skull and lifting him effortlessly. The thug kicked and screamed, but the thing raised him to its face, mouth opening wide. Light burst from the man's skull, sucked into the giant's maw. He shrieked and writhed, uselessly. Lexi, run, Ryan whispered, unsure she even heard. But she'd seen the giant, too. She grabbed Don under the arms and dragged him, nearly falling over. He was unconscious, limp. Ryan joined her, and together they hauled his weight toward safety. Out of the spotlight, Ryan felt briefly safe, and completely exhausted. Don was impossibly heavy. He wanted to leave him behind, but Lexi kept dragging. She pulled toward the security trailer. Ryan noticed the door was wide open. Odd. The guards never left it like that. And wasn't there a door closer? No, Ryan muttered. Lexi looked at him, then turned back. A girl stood in the doorway. Braids, blue dress. Her face was hidden. Ryan yanked them in the opposite direction. Lexi, confused but trusting, followed. No one pursued them. The trailer faded into the dark, the girl in the doorway vanishing like a dying candle flame. The jumper in the white shirt and the towering giant were gone. Maybe they watched from the shadows. That's it. Ryan dropped Don's hand. I'm done. They ducked behind the summer cafe's ivy-covered wooden cage and pulled Don onto the grass. Ryan collapsed beside him, face in his hands, shaking with exhaustion and terror, tears welling.
Who was that?
Lexi crouched beside him.
Do you have any idea?
I don't know, Ryan said, not lowering his hands. I saw that girl during the day. That's all. That's it. His throat clenched, hard like stone. Ryan winced, hunched his shoulders, and squeezed his eyes shut, pressing tears into his palms.
Don't start crying now,
Lexi muttered, her voice quivering.
We got to do something.
I left my phone charging again. Do you have yours? Oh, right. I already asked. Ryan looked down. Lexi went silent, shook Dawn, and suddenly sobbed. She looked up, blinking back tears, quietly cursed. Let's hide better, at least. They dragged Dawn a few yards to the back of the bumper cars.
I didn't show you this,
Lexi whispered, peeling back a sheet of plywood. They squeezed through and pulled Dawn inside. It smelled like rubber. At first they had to move by touch. Ryan nearly fell over a low metal frame embedded in the ground. The carts lined up like steel insects, poised to spring. They huddled in a corner and tried to breathe. Their sneakers scraped the floor. They listened to each other's breathing, afraid to speak. A scream echoed in the distance. Long, drawn out, desperate.
Did you hear that?
Lexi asked after a while.
Yeah.
Unspoken, they left Dawn behind and crawled toward the square of light ahead. They slipped through the tire barricade, crossed the winding track, and pressed themselves to the sliding gate. A few dozen feet away, under the street lights, the body of the other guard lay sprawled. Hard to believe that just recently he'd been a cheerful, joking man. A soft breeze nudged a scrap of plastic across the pavement. Lexi and Ryan stared into the cool, silent darkness of the park. No monsters in sight. Lexi tugged Ryan, ready to go back for Dawn, but he wouldn't budge, gripping the gate. Something stirred in the dark. A wet, wheezing cough. From the gloom emerged the thing in the white shirt. It moved softly, but every now and then jerked forward, mouth gaping like a cat ready to vomit. Lexi clutched Ryan's hand tight. The thing retched. Something glowing spilled from its mouth, then vanished into the air. It seemed like the light, carried by a gust of wind, flew toward the bumper cars. Ryan turned to Lexi. He suddenly felt a strange pressure and heard Dawn's voice inside his head, laughing, angry, screaming 1,000 words all at once. Then silence. Ryan flinched, looked around, stunned.
What's wrong?
Lexi whispered. Dawn. And then Dawn really groaned, somewhere in the dark. He was waking up. Lexi ran to him. Ryan didn't follow, too scared to be alone, but he turned his eyes back outside. The white-shirted creature was gone. But the giant was there, approaching slowly, awkwardly. What were they? What the hell was going on? He wanted to scream at the questions echoing in his skull like trapped voices in concrete. And then someone new stepped into the light. Under the lamp, not quite inside the circle of light, stood a slim, fragile figure in a white, oversized t-shirt and jeans. Pale skin. A round, asymmetrical head with greasy, sparse hair. A face like an old woman's, twisted in a permanent, grotesque grin that stretched ear to ear. Ryan almost screamed again. It was the same face, the girl in the blue dress from earlier. None of the others noticed. The bald thug, the tank, shouted something and charged one of the security guards. Don stumbled back, pulling out his rubber bullet pistol. The thug didn't slow down, just kept yelling, spit flying from his mouth. "Do it! Come on! Shoot!" "Stop, you moron!" Don barked. Leo raised his baton, but one of the others tackled him, knocking him to the pavement. The rest jumped in. Kicks flew. Ryan saw a bloody hand twitch on the asphalt. The gun cracked. Someone cried out. Someone collapsed. Don swept his gun from target to target, forcing the thugs to scatter. But the figure in the white shirt remained still. That unnatural smile only grew wider. Don turned the gun toward him, confused, disgusted. A weird grinding noise echoed, teeth or skin tearing. The figure trembled. Its head vibrated violently. Then, with an inhuman groan, it sprang. Don screamed. The thing slammed into him, mouth pressed to his chest. Wet slurping echoed. The creature fed, its back arching and collapsing, vertebrae writhing beneath the shirt. Don shrieked, legs kicked, head slammed the pavement. Ryan began to crawl backward, panic rising. Then Lexi ran straight toward her stepdad. Despair smothered the fear. Ryan cursed and followed. There wasn't blood, just light. When Lexi kicked the creature off, pale beams poured from its mouth. It rolled away into the darkness. Don gasped for air, alive, barely. The creature vanished. Leo lay nearby, silent in a pool of dark red. Still, the thugs scattered. Only one lingered, holding up his phone, recording, mumbling obscenities. Then something moved behind him. Ryan saw it. So did the thug. He turned. The tall thing approached, a towering silhouette. Long arms, narrow shoulders, bulbous head. It was the giant. The thug froze, still filming. He didn't even try to run. The giant raised one massive hand. Fingers like sticks closed over the man's skull. Effortlessly, it lifted him, kicking, screaming, futile. The monster brought him close. Its mouth opened wide. A light burst from the thug's head, streaming into the creature's mouth. He wailed, twitching like a dying animal. "Lexi, run," Ryan whispered again, but she had already moved. She grabbed Don, dragged him, nearly collapsed. Ryan helped. Together, they hauled Don's limp body away from the light, into the shadows. Behind them, the monster fed. They reached the summer cafe, ducked behind it. Don was heavy, too heavy, but Lexi didn't stop. Ahead, the security trailer. The door was open. "No," Ryan muttered. "No, no, no." In the doorway stood a girl, braids, a dress, her face hidden in shadow. Ryan yanked Lexi in the opposite direction. No one followed. The trailer shrank behind them, the girl in the doorway fading like a dying candle. The white-shirted creature and the giant were gone, but maybe they watched from the trees. "I'm done," Ryan said, dropping Don's arm. They dragged him behind the bumper cars and stopped. Ryan collapsed into the grass, hands over his face, trembling. Lexi crouched beside him.
Who are they? Do you understand any of this?
"I don't know," Ryan said through his hands. "I saw that girl earlier. That's all. That's it." Tears pressed behind his eyes. He squeezed them shut.
Don't cry,
Lexi muttered, her voice cracking.
we gotta do something. My phone's charging. You have yours? No, right, I asked already.
Ryan stayed quiet. Lexi shook Don, sobbing now. She looked up, blinked the tears away, swore softly. "Let's hide." They dragged Don a little further until they reached the back of the bumper cars.
I didn't show you this before,
Lexi whispered, peeling back a plywood panel. They slipped inside, pulling Don behind them. Dark, rubber smell. Ryan stumbled over a low bumper car frame. The carts sat lined up like steel beetles, ready to pounce. They crawled into a corner and listened, to each other's breath, to the forest. A scream echoed through the night. Long, horrible. Lexi whispered,
Did you hear that?
"Yeah." Without speaking, they crawled toward the light at the other end, over the tire barrier, across the track, to the metal gate. They peered out. The streetlights glowed cold. Leo's body lay still in the road. Plastic wrappers drifted on the wind. The monsters were gone. Lexi tugged Ryan's arm. She wanted to go back for Don. Ryan didn't move. In the dark, something stirred. A cough, wet and gurgling. The thing in the white shirt crawled into view. It moved oddly, soft and jerky, like a cat retching. Lexi squeezed Ryan's hand. It stopped. Vomited light. Beams shimmered, dissolved in the air. Some of them seemed to drift toward the bumper cars. Ryan turned, felt something pass through him. A voice in his head. Don's voice. Laughing, shouting, crying, whispering all at once. Then silence. Ryan flinched, looked around, confused.
What is it?
Lexi whispered.
Don.
Then Don groaned. He was alive. Lexi rushed back to him. Ryan stood frozen, staring into the dark. The creature was gone. But the giant remained, moving slowly, awkwardly, like he didn't belong in this world. What was happening? He turned toward the Ferris wheel. And there stood someone else. It was her. The girl from the park. From the first day. The one in the blue dress. She stepped out from the trees, lit from below by the pale street lamp. Her small figure, her round, sagging face, her childish hands. Braids. Sandals. A smile stretched so wide it looked painful, stitched across her face like a scar. Ryan gasped. The ride carts behind them buzzed faintly. The girl was walking, slowly, deliberately, toward them. His back hit the metal gate. He scrambled, scraping his sneakers against the asphalt, trying to climb, push, squeeze through anything. The gate rattled, groaned. It wouldn't open. She kept coming. Ryan turned away, desperate to escape. And then he saw the giant. It was stepping toward the bumper cars, too. He didn't think, didn't plan, just moved, like instinct took over. He dropped to all fours and scrambled through the narrow gap in the fence, between the bars, through, and ran. Ran past Leo's lifeless body, down the alley, through puddles and trash, past flickering lights and twisted shadows. He ran until his chest burned and the blood pounded in his ears, but something blocked his path. A man. The last thug, the one with the raspy voice. He was getting up from the pavement, moving awkwardly, like drunk. His eyes rolled back. Drool dripped from his open mouth. Was he dangerous? Could he catch Ryan if he tried to slip past? Ryan didn't take the chance. He swerved, turned down a side path, away from the alley, into deeper shadows. He ran until he hit the chain-link fence, climbed, fell through, inside the rope's course now. The forest was thick here, branches clawing from above, nets and bridges creaking above. By day, kids in harnesses climbed from tree to tree laughing. Now it was a graveyard of webs. Ryan crept forward, heart pounding. Somewhere ahead, something snapped. He froze. Tree limbs whispered overhead. His breath caught. Leaves rustled behind him. Something dropped nearby. He spun around. Nothing. Breathe. Run. Something grabbed his leg. A vine? A hand? He screamed and stumbled forward, nearly falling. His foot burned. He fell, hard, onto the cold, damp earth. Pain flared in his heel. But his foot was still there, just twisted, bruised. No blood. He rolled to his side, hands groping for anything. His fingers brushed tree roots, gnarled and veiny like old arms, then moss, thick and wet. A rustling sound, like insects, dozens of them, crawling, fleeing. He scrambled backward to the nearest tree. A raindrop hit his face, then another. The rain began, thin and sharp. Ryan pressed his back to the bark, feeling the rough texture through his shirt. He wanted to disappear, to vanish into the ground. He stood up, blinking away tears. Then, someone stepped out from behind the tree. Ryan didn't have time to react. A hand grabbed his hair and yanked him forward. He staggered, crying out, dragged through the forest. The breath beside him was heavy. The voice, low, slurred, swearing. It was the bald one, the thug. Ryan's knees buckled, but the man didn't stop. He pulled him back toward the light. "Don't even think about it, you little shit," the man growled. His breath stank. He lifted Ryan by the shirt, dragging him toward the park entrance. They reached the fence. The thug climbed with one hand, dragging Ryan behind him. They landed hard on the other side. Rain pelted them. The man dragged Ryan toward the shooting gallery, muttering, cursing, shouting into the dark. He saw something, screamed, spun. Ryan got yanked along,
his shirt choking him, cutting into his neck. "Stay away! You hear me? Stay the fuck back!"
The thug kicked a trash bin, then another. Bottles shattered. He picked one up, smashed it against the concrete, held the jagged glass like a weapon.
"Come near me and I'll gut you!"
He screamed at the dark. Ryan dangled in his grip, the glass edge pressed to his throat. The thug twitched, eyes darting everywhere. He didn't see them, but Ryan did. Shadows in the rain. The bald man screamed again, lifted Ryan higher.
"This one. Take him instead. You want someone. Take him."
The jagged bottle dug into Ryan's skin. He cried out, blood mixed with rain. Then, a new sound. A deep, rhythmic clang, like metal on stone. Steady, heavy. It came closer. Ryan froze. So did the thug. Even the rain seemed to pause. From the far end of the alley, a figure emerged. Short, stocky, drenched in black overalls. Limps when he walks. Instead of a leg, a steel rod. Instead of a hand, another jagged spike. Each step, clang, clang. It was him. The mechanic. The dead one. Ryan couldn't breathe. The figure advanced. Then everything blinked. Darkness. Then light. The mechanic was gone. The thug gasped. He turned to Ryan to scream. But something pierced his belly. A steel rod burst through his stomach, red and black. The thug's face twisted in horror. He fell. Behind him stood the mechanic. Steel foot, steel hand, face hidden in shadow, alive, or something like it. Ryan couldn't move. His chest felt like concrete. The mechanic glowed. Red lights flashed behind him. The ride. The Inferno Express. The gates were open. The mechanic turned, clanged forward, entered. The gates remained open. A scrap of paper lay on the ground, soaked. Ryan reached into his pocket. His ticket was gone. That was his. He grabbed the scrap and followed. Climbed into the cart, sat beside the mechanic's corpse. "Do you remember me?" he whispered. The ride began to move. Lights flashed. Blue, red, blue. The mechanic's face sagged. Pieces fell away. Ryan trembled. "I used to come here," he began, voice breaking. But the man's face was melting. Mask-like skin peeled off. The ride surged upward. The horror rushed over Ryan again. He looked up. Ahead, on the track, stood a girl. Blue dress, braids, smiling. The cart hit her. Her body flew into the air. Ryan shut his eyes, but he could still see it. Still remember that summer, the moment the ride had broken, the mechanic who'd come to fix it, the moment everything had gone wrong. Maybe Ryan had made it happen. Maybe he'd wished it. The cart sped forward. The track twisted, twisted again. He opened his eyes. The creatures were back. The giant, the jumper, the girl. They chased. But someone else chased them. Spikes rose from the ground, pierced them, crushed them. Light flashed. Then, silence. Ryan opened his eyes. The mechanic was gone. Only the empty ride remained. Rain fell softly. He stepped down, soaked, alone. He walked back to the park. Lexi was there. Don sat nearby, dazed. None of them would be the same, not after this. And as they left, just kids again, Ryan looked back, one last time, toward the darkness, toward the ride, toward what had come for them, and maybe, just maybe, toward who had saved him.